Hey, this is Brian Posehn, and you're watching Sinistermoon's Retro Reviews. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. The show's totally metal, not for posers.
Hey everybody, so today we're going to talk about this Intellivision II arcade stick by BD Retro Mods. I paid $125 for this thing. I think he only wanted like $117 for it, but he wanted to use friends and family on PayPal. I didn't want to do that because I don't trust the US Post Office. They've demolished plenty of my packages in the past, and so I opted to pay $125 so I could get products and services through PayPal. So then that way, if the post office demolished this thing, I could get my money back. So yeah, it was worth it to me. And luckily for me though, it did show up just fine. So it took about a month for him to make this controller for me. And really, that's awesome. Like, I expected it to take much longer than that. And so the fact that it only took a month is awesome. However, when I got this thing out of the box, the first thing that I noticed is that it's extremely light. Like, if you're playing, like, look at this. Yeah, and it doesn't really like to stick down, and it's so light that you can easily move it around. Like, you have to always have it like this, and that's going to be my next major complaint, is that this enclosure, this project box, whatever you want to call it, is incredibly small, and as a result, your hands are forever going to be sitting on these corners and edges, and it's very uncomfortable, especially after playing for like a couple hours. Your hands are gonna hurt. This is a hand killer right here. Like, look at this. Like, when I have my hand on the action buttons, you can see that the corner is sticking right into my palm, and it just freaking hurts, man. Like, I mean, you can try to play like this and keep your hand off the enclosure all you want, but eventually you're gonna want to rest your hand. Like, I don't like the layout of these buttons at all. It might have been okay in a bigger enclosure, but honestly, I think that you should have done them just in a straight line, kind of like a Sega Genesis 3-button controller, because this one right here, these are your top shoulder buttons, okay? Like, the left and the right one, they do the same thing. That's why you only need one button. Now, the bottom ones here, the bottom shoulder buttons, this is your left one, this is your right one. And so that's why there's two of them. I don't like that layout at all. Like, I went with this color scheme. You could select which colors you wanted to differentiate from the top and bottom buttons. And plus, these match the stick. But, I don't like that. I would rather have one of these here, this guy in the middle, and then this one where it's at. I think that would be better, because I found that with a lot of Intellivision games, you're not going to be using all three of these anyhow. As a matter of fact, you're probably just going to be using two of them, top and bottom, and so you're going to forever be at a slant like this when you're playing, and I don't like that because, again, that corner just jams right into my freaking palm, and it hurts. I don't like it. And plus, these buttons are incredibly small. I didn't know that just by looking at pictures of it. I don't like how small these buttons are, and on top of that, like, all three of them have a different sound and feel to them, which is weird. That one has kind of a springy sound, and it feels hollow when you hit it. This one takes a little bit more force to press, and it just doesn't have any oomph to it, really. This one, on the other hand, is pretty much spot on. This one's perfect. Look at that. See how that has a different sound to it? And that one? Yeah, so not really digging on these buttons. Now, these buttons that he used for the keypad are just amazing. I absolutely love these buttons, and this is very much so the biggest redeemable quality of this stick, in my opinion, is that these buttons feel so freaking good. I used a white one as the clear button because you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 0, and then you got clear and you got enter. He only had clear, black, and red, and I thought the red would clash with the other colors, and so I didn't put red for enter or anything like that. I guess you probably could have used red and white and black for the whole stick, and it probably would have made more sense. But I just figured, hey, I already have these memorized. I've had these memorized since I was like 4 years old. And so white for clear lets me know that this is clear, and then this is enter, and then all these are numbers, and I know that, so that's fine. I do think that it would have been cool if he put some sort of like mount, some kind of bracket or something, like some kind of holder for overlays, because an overlay would actually fit over these buttons, I think. And I think that would be really cool to use the overlays on this stick, especially since he didn't use like actual like arcade like bigger buttons for the keypad, and he didn't use an actual like a matrix keypad or whatever. So yeah, I think that would have been really awesome, especially for people that are new to the Intellivision and they have always kind of hated the Intellivision because of the controllers. And so this would have been great for them to slip an overlay over these buttons, and so they know what they're doing. Me personally, I have pretty much every single one of my overlays memorized. I've been playing these games for a long time, over 30 years. So it's easy for me to have them all memorized, and especially since I memorized most of them back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So the next thing I'll talk about is the joystick that they put in. It feels a lot like a Sanwa stick, but I don't think that it's an actual Sanwa stick. I think it's a clone. I could be wrong. We'll find out when we open this thing up. It's an 8-way stick, and it has a square restrictor plate, which I don't really like that. This stick will not do 16-way games, and so a lot of your favorites that were made for the 16-way Intellivision disc will not work. However, it will play some 8-way games, but it's going to feel weird with that square restrictor plate. You really want like a circular restrictor plate or maybe an octagonal restrictor plate. That would have felt way better. I don't know why he went with the square, and the square is going to feel bad with 8-way games, and it's also going to feel a little bit bad with 2-way games as well. And so the other thing that bugs me though is that I don't know if you've ever tried using an 8-way stick with like on 4-way games, but it sucks. It's really sloppy. You're going to miss directions often. A really great example is going to be Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man. You'll be playing one of those games with this, and you'll miss directions often, and you might just run right into a monster or ghost, depending on what you want to call it. People call them different things, but originally they were known as monsters. But yeah, 8-way sticks are horrible for 4-way games, and so I'm hoping that you can switch this into 4-way mode easily, because this just isn't that great feeling. The next thing I dislike about the joystick is that the ball top has a really big sharp seam right in the middle of it here. I find that completely annoying. I think it looks cheap. It feels cheap. I don't like it. I would rather it be seamless. And on top of that, this ball top was not properly tightened down, and so it easily screws off. And no matter how hard you try to wrench it down with your fingers, it will come loose when you're playing. And so I'm hoping that there's a screw at the bottom of the shaft that I can tighten this ball top down with. If not, then I'm going to use some Loctite in there, because like I don't need this thing falling off when I'm trying to play. And so before we get to the biggest complaint of this thing, I am going to say that this wire is fairly cheap feeling. It could be a little bit thicker, it could be a little bit longer, but most importantly, when you're putting this thing into the Intellivision, it doesn't even feel like you're really putting it in there all that well. And then when you go to take it out, it has like the death grip, and you're pulling it, and it's not want to come out. So you're doing the whole, side to side thing, and after a while, it will come out. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook this to an extension cable, and then that way I can just plug that other end of that DB9 into my Intellivision, because I don't need to go breaking any pins in my controller port. Thank you very much. And so now for my biggest complaint about this stick right here is that it's ridiculously small. Like, other than the fact that it's really light, it's also incredibly small. And I didn't think that it was that small by looking at the pictures that BD Retro initially posted, but it's very small. It's actually 8.5 inches lengthwise here. And that it sounds like a good amount, but it's really not, because when you look at my hand on this stick, like my pinky and like the palm, like the side of my hand and everything is literally just sitting on the edge there, and that just does not feel good at all. And after like a couple hours of playing, you're really gonna feel this this stick in your hands. It's a hand killer, not gonna lie, and I really don't like that about this. I think that if he would have went with a bigger enclosure, it would have made a world of difference. And it's really unfortunate because this thing is so dang small, it makes me not want to play it, or use it, I should say. And so yeah, there's really nothing I can do about that except for change all the components out into a bigger enclosure. And I mean, that really kind of defeats the purpose for me, because I was gonna build my own Intellivision arcade stick anyhow. I decided not to because, well, this was coming out, and so I figured, well, hey, I'll just buy this one. When I first got this, the first night that I got it, I put like a good 6 hours of use on it, and my hands were aching really bad afterwards. And so the next day, I almost didn't want to use it because I was like, ow, my hands, and I got to work the rest of the week. I don't really know if I want to, put my hands through that, level of abuse again. But I did. I played for like another 3 hours the next day, and the ball top kept coming loose, and I'm just like, man, this thing kind of sucks, doesn't it? And I'm not even talking about my minor gripes. Like, look at this. These are knuckle busters right here. You should have been using carriage bolts, man. And then you got these Phillips screws, just kind of hanging out there. There's no covers for them, which I think looks tacky. And there's no kind of grip tape on this. So in this thing, look at my fingers. I'm playing, they just slide on this thing. And that's not what you want at all. You want grip. You want to be able to, really grip this thing, and you want these legs to really grip on to your table. But look at this. I'm just sliding it around because these are really smooth. They don't really grip very well. And I mean, just this whole thing is incredibly light and just kind of flimsy, honestly. And so yeah, I mean, what I'm gonna do is, since I don't want to take everything out and put it into a new enclosure, maybe in time I will, but I don't feel like it now, is I'm going to open this up, I'm going to show you what's inside, I'm going to hopefully tighten this ball top down, and hopefully put the stick into 4-way mode so I can play games like He-Man, Masters of the Universe, or Frogger, or Pac-Man, or Miss Pac-Man, or whatever else, Donkey Kong. Just all the good old 4-way arcade classics and stuff, or games that are arcade-like, I think should work much better in a 4-way mode. And I just won't play the 8-way games, and I just won't play the 16-way games, which you can't play the 16-way games on this anyhow. And if at all possible, if it isn't too much of a challenge, I would like to switch these two buttons. But yeah, so with all that said, let's go ahead and open this up and see what we can do about all these problems. Alright, so I got all the screws out, and I just wanted to point out that I thought that these would be much longer. I mean, look how short these are. These are just itty-bitty little screws. There isn't a whole lot keeping this thing together. And so, this is going to be the first time that I get to see in here as well. Oh, I'm already seeing a breadboard down there. That's interesting. And, oh jeez. Alright, so that's not a sandwa. There's no way that's a sandwa. That is a generic POS, and that's upsetting. And then the next thing that I'm seeing that's really upsetting is it looks like he used quick releases on these little buttons here, the action buttons or whatever you want to call them, side buttons. So that's good. So that's going to make it so I can easily change out a couple of these buttons, or at least swap the position in the case. These, on the other hand, are these? Yeah, these are quick connected, and they're, oh man, they just fall right off of there, don't they? They're incredibly loose. Oh, look at this. There's already one hanging off, and I don't even know where the freak that goes. And there's another one. Oh, well, that's just brilliant. Oh, man. Dude, this isn't good. Alright, like, well, let me swap these buttons. Let me try to get these wires back into the right place. And I'll see what I can do about... Maybe I can at least tighten the ball top, because that's been really annoying. Ah, man, this is becoming kind of a letdown, but... Alright, let me get this back together, guys, and we'll go from there. Alright, so just a quick update before I button this thing up. I got all the wires back to where they needed to go. They were all loose, all the quick connects or quick disconnects or whatever you want to call them. And so I kind of went through and just kind of flattened them up with my needle nose pliers here, and that way they grip onto the terminals way better. Every time I found one and tightened it and put it back to where it needed to go, the ground would fall off, and then I had to tighten up the grounds on every single one of those. It was annoying. I think that somebody that doesn't have all that much knowledge of this kind of thing would be really let down with this, because they were so loose that I wouldn't doubt that these things come off like as people are playing games, and they're not going to know why those buttons don't work anymore. I mean, they could probably guess that the wire fell off, but they might not know how to fix it, or they might be too intimidated to, you know, open this up and fix it themselves. And so really, this is bad. This is amateur level stuff. And I really wanted to talk this thing up. I really wanted to like this thing. But wow, that was just so sloppy. And then you got this big glob of tape holding the wire down, and just, come on, man. That is like so amateur. That looks awful. The problem with this is that I want to get this stick out of here and put a better stick in. But the problem with that is that nice stick will still be in this tiny little enclosure, and I'm not going to be happy with it regardless of having a nice stick in it. And so that's really, really annoying. I did get these buttons swapped out, and every single one of those quick connects was loose, and I had to tighten those up, and yeah, just really, really annoying. And so I think I'm going to try to tighten up the ball top on this thing. I'll just leave it in 8-way mode, I guess, and we'll button it up, and I'll give you my final thoughts on it. So I got it all buttoned back up. I went ahead and swapped out these buttons like I was saying, and this helps a lot. This does make the stick a little bit more comfortable. I tightened up all these wires for the keypad buttons. That was a mess. This stick, this joystick right here, is a piece of garbage. I wish it wasn't in there. I am going to swap it out for an authentic Sinistermoon, which is what I have in this 8-bit dough that I modified some time back. I have the video on my page if you want to go check that out. I put these side by side so you can get a good comparison of size. Like, look how small this thing is compared to this thing. This thing has adequate amount of space. When I put my hand here, look at that. There's all this room over here, and it's just resting on a flat surface, which actually has more grippiness than this by quite a bit. And yeah, this just feels amazing. I love this stick with the authentic Sinistermoon joystick and the authentic sandwob buttons. It just feels great. There's a lot of weight to this thing since it has a metal bottom, and these grips absolutely work. Look at this. The whole board is moving on the footstool, but this stick is not, whereas this, see what I mean? It sucks. I'm extremely let down with this thing. My expectations were sky high. BD Retro typically makes really nice products. I mean, check out his Atari Jaguar stick. That thing looks amazing. But this This is crap, and I do not suggest it. I mean, maybe if it was considered to be like a mini arcade stick, and it was only like $60 shipped or something like that, then I would say pull the trigger. But for like 120, 125 bucks or whatever, no way. No way in hell. Like, if he would have put this in a bigger enclosure, authentic stick, bigger, authentic buttons, these are fine. This is the only thing about the stick that I think is just fine. Maybe some carriage bolts, maybe some kind of covers for these Phillips, or maybe just, put the Phillips on the bottom or something. More weight to it, and I could go on and on. Like, if he would have done all those things, then great. Then I would suggest it, but he didn't. It's not even for sale at this point. If it does come up for sale again, I really hope that he has like a revised version of it, because this I can't suggest this. But that said, I do want to try to get some of my money out of it, because I'm not going to return it or anything like that. I'm just going to make the best out of it, and it will be a good backup or something. Unfortunately, I plugged it directly into my Sears Intellivision, so that's going to be a pain in the ass to get back out, like it was last time. Like I said, it kind of has like a death grip to it, so you just got to be really careful. But I'm going to play a game real quick here, or at least part of one. I got He-Man loaded up, and you will see that the stick does work, and it does feel a little bit better. Like, I mean, you can hold it like this, like with your thumbs, and I guess that kind of makes it feel a little bit better in a way. But it feels better like with these buttons swapped out. And I mean, it does work pretty dang well for He-Man. I'm not going to make you sit through an entire game of He-Man, because typically when I play He-Man, I play for at least 45 minutes. But yeah, it works well for this game, except for the fact that just in the small amount of time that I've been playing, it's hurting my hand right here, and this hand right here. It's upsetting. What can I say? I'm gonna go ahead and end this video now before I just keep blabbing on, because I have a tendency to do that. But I will say that I do not suggest this product unless BD Retro revises it. If he revises it, then maybe I'll buy the revised version, or if he would be so kind to offer a bigger enclosure for purchase that already has all the holes in it that you need for all the buttons, then I would buy it, and I would swap out the parts myself, because this thing is just kind of a piece of crap. So anyhow, stay sinister, take care.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you've been watching Sinistermoon's Retro Reviews. It's far out, man, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Next time you see us, come on up and say hello. Identify yourself, dude. And maybe we'll share a doob together. Sinistermoon's Retro Reviews.